This video is sponsored by £1.50. Hi guys, I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Collectively, we're all three of the Office Blokes.
Yeah, we are.
In the studio again.
Yep.
Mike's back. He's alive.
Yep. What about his back?
Ruined.
It's obliterated.
It's wet.
Oh God! A bit early in the video for stuff like this, isn't it?
Nah, never. Yeah, Office Bloke Mike. Now he's back. He's excited to tell you about our Patreon.
Oh yeah, go and have a look at patreon.com and put in Office Blokes React. If you want to support the show, like loads of people have done already, go down there, check it out. We've got tiers starting at just £1.50. We've got block content, exclusive videos, and we do a weekly podcast as well, don't we? Exclusive for patrons only.
Do we?
We do.
We do.
Terrific.
Still doing it, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still doing it. Still doing it. It's been a bit hit or miss over the summer for various reasons, but yeah, we're back on it.
Absolutely.
Right then, Popo Medic. We did, was it Roof Koreans that was Popo Medic?
Something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, which was a great video.
Yeah.
Instantly age restricted.
Yeah. Was it?
Yeah. It's fine now.
I'm thinking this is going to be age restricted then as well.
Probably. The ATF battle, the ATF battle and Cult of Waco.
Yeah. There was like a... Do you remember this? Back in the 90s?
I know what happened.
What year
in
were you
Waco.
born?
86.
86. So this was about 90... Early 90s, 92, 93, I would say.
It was the cult, wasn't it? And
his name is David Koresh, I think. Something like that.
Didn't they go in with flamethrowers or something? Isn't it like
he was like
a military tank flamethrower them and burnt them all up or something?
I just remember it all sort of like happening at the time. It was like worldwide news, wasn't it? You'll know it when you see it. The guy stood on the roof and then there's a massive fire.
It was a big siege, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was
siege,
like just a cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty sure his name is David Koresh.
Right.
Right, so it's coming back to me a bit now.
It's one of them that I've heard about bits, but I don't really know anything proper. So it'll be interesting, this one.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm guessing David, because I think all psychos are called David, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
He has got axes and stuff, hasn't he?
Caravans.
In the garden.
You think how many axes I've got? If I was a psycho, they'd all be covered in blood one day. They wouldn't.
No, psychos clean them.
I clean them.
Yeah.
Just sit in front of the TV with a stone going. Anyway, right, the ATF battle and the Cult of Waco. Let's do it.
Thursday, February 28th, 1993.
There you go.
A small-town preacher running a religious compound in Waco, Texas, quickly found himself in the middle of a 51-day siege with the FBI, following one of the most televised and disastrous law enforcement raids in American history.
Before we get too deep in, let me triple check on screen recording. I had a weird feeling then. Right, we are.
You?
Ignore me.
What's that, a weird feeling?
Situation, courtesy
Sexual
of
feeling.
the ATF. FBI negotiators pleaded with the preacher to peacefully exit the compound and surrender, but the FBI quickly learned the man was far from a preacher. He was a deranged cult leader, a self-proclaimed messiah destined to bring the world to end times. And through his dictatorship and weaponization of the Bible, he manipulated and had prepared his followers to fight a holy war against the beasts of Babylon.
It's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it?
Unbelievable.
In 1981, 22-year-old Vernon Howell makes his way to Waco, Texas. His dreams of one day becoming a famous rock star were well over, after failing to form a band in Los Angeles. And for the aspiring lead singer, it was a boy's last dream and a man's first loss. And like most young men tasting their first drop of reality, Vernon Howell was in need of guidance and embarked on a spiritual adventure, resorting back to the one thing he was ever good at: his knowledge of the Bible, to which he reportedly memorized by the age of 14. He discovered like-minded individuals from a fairly new religious movement and splinter group of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, who called themselves the Branch Davidians.
They're not the ones that we watched a video and they're all dressed exactly the same. And they were like all blonde-haired. We watched something like in recent months. I thought that was the Seventh-day Adventist.
Don't know. I don't remember that.
I don't remember.
Do you remember they were all dressed like milkmaids?
Yeah,
and like
but
the
that's
families
like,
all
that's
looked
like,
exactly. They weren't.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
They weren't
That's kinda
Quakers
like,
though.
Yeah, it was similar sort of thing, weren't they? We were asked at the time what was What does something stand for? Is it Latter-day Saints sort of thing?
That might be the one, actually.
Yeah,
right. I'm getting confused.
But I've got his name wrong then. What was his name? Vernon something?
Something like
Who am I thinking of then with Davy Koresh?
Not sure.
I'm not sure.
Oh.
Look into that.
He camped out at the group's compound in Waco, the Mount Carmel Center, owned and ran by a George Roden. And over the next 4 years, using his outsider, rock and roll persona, people took a liking to Howell, especially the women, even having an affair with Roden's 60-year-old mother, causing such an uproar that Vernon Howell had to flee Mount Carmel Center altogether. And to his surprise, he was followed. Realizing the power he wielded over his fellow Branch Davidians, the covert narcissist, with the same audacity and entitlement to pursue a career as a rock star, pivoted his misguided ego to the lead role within the Branch Davidians. And by 1987, he turned his followers into an armed militia, declaring the Mount Carmel Center was his for the taking, and his rival and the reigning king of the Branch Davidians, George Roden, was in his way. And on November 3rd of 1987, Vernon Howell led an armed group of men into Waco, attacking the Mount Carmel Center. A firefight ensued, and the gun battle lasted for nearly 45 minutes. While firing hundreds of rounds in the middle of a gun battle, Vernon Howell was preaching to his followers, and even shouting scripture directed at Roden. Roden was shot in the finger and was reportedly the only person injured. Vernon Howell and all 8 of his accomplices were rounded up by the sheriffs and indicted on charges for attempted murder. All 9 were tried in a state court, and all 9 were acquitted by a jury.
What? He shot me in the finger. Wasn't very good, a 45-minute gunfight.
No one
shot him in the finger.
Shooting practice, I think, is a goal for there.
They were all acquitted, though.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Maybe if it's on a private compound and the other ones don't press charges or something.
But
then why would it go to court?
Oh, the judge is also man of God.
Seventh-day Adventist.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if there's a bit fewer connections going on there. That seems bizarre.
I did hear of a thing where there's a mutual combat law, which I'm no expert in, but if it's like both parties agree,
If it's a shootout,
duel,
Yeah.
If both people agree, then as long as no outsiders are endangered or anything, it can be fair
you're allowed
game.
to do it.
I don't know that for a fact, so don't quote me on it, but I did hear a thing of some people who had a gunfight and none of them went to prison.
Maybe it's,
even
one
though
of
killed.
maybe it's one of those really old laws in a certain small part, a state somewhere, like a little sort of like a...
Is it like Billy the Kid and fucking... What's it you're talking about?
No.
None of them went to jail. You know what? There was no jail.
There was a recent one apparently where there was a gunfight and a guy or 2 guys got killed, and it was like a half-hour gunfight in the street.
Yeah.
And because both sides declared mutual combat, I think they were gangsters or something.
How do you clink? You have to do clinky guns or something.
No, I think when
ding,
for
ding.
war. Yeah. I don't know, but apparently that people got away with a literal gunfight because it was mutual combat.
Wow.
Fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is mutual, and
fine, fair enough. Right? Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, sell tickets.
After Vernon Howell's release, George Roden vacated the Mount Carmel Center. Howell paid the property taxes owed and took over, becoming the newfound leader of the Branch Davidians. And under Howell's leadership, the sect of Branch Davidians became reborn into something new altogether. Howell and his followers collected abandoned vehicles, recycled building materials, and acquired an FFL license, selling firearms at gun shows. The money earned was invested back into the community to build bunkers on top of bunkers to further fortify the Mount Carmel compound. And an even larger portion of the money was invested into more firearms to stockpile and increase their inventory for future buyers, and as well as an inventory for themselves.
You can kind of see why people were. It was appealing to join that cult, like the building bunkers and stockpiling firearms.
The fucking last place I'd want to go.
Right up your street that day.
Right up your street, yeah.
Could you imagine? It'd be
Fucking weirdo.
But I don't believe in God, but can you have that bunker over there?
Go on to read the Bible for 4 months first.
For his pleasure. People are fixing to get an ass kicking.
And by weaponizing the words of the gospel, Hal began decaying the souls of his followers, self-proclaiming that he himself was God in the flesh, the chosen one to interpret the 7 seals of Revelation, pushing an apocalyptic, messianic agenda within the sect, prophesizing his will to bring the universe to end times, resurrecting and initiating the second coming of Jesus Christ. He would change his name to David after King David, and take the surname of Koresh after Cyrus the Conqueror, and the Branch Davidians worshipped their leader, David Koresh. And he began to control every aspect of their lives, from declaring which foods they could eat, to which mothers were fit for motherhood, even claiming through a divine mandate that he must take the wives of other men as his own, and that all other men...
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
The red flag with all of these guys.
Fucking hell, the red flag was way before this, mate.
I know. But when you really, as an outsider, look at them and go, I know what they're up to, it's when they start shagging everyone else.
Yeah. I'm the gaffer. I'm the gaffer.
Look, the first rule is, I didn't make it, but the first rule is.
That's what it says in the book, lads.
Yeah. Thou shalt worship my divine sword.
Not to do with me, Governor, but...
Big man upstairs told you to take your clothes off.
Who am I to argue?
All these cult.
I'm just, don't shoot the messenger.
Every time it comes down to the same thing, doesn't it?
It does.
In all of them.
It does. Yeah,
Absolutely unbelievable.
They're never celibate. The cults,
No, they're absolutely
never celibate.
Potty.
Yeah, absolute rampant.
Fruitcakes.
are to be dissolved, and commanding all men
I won't.
in the Branch Davidians to
Do it.
remain single and remain celibate. And through his dictatorship,
Oh, you said something
So
about
it's
celibacy
then, yeah.
in the Branch Davidians to remain single and remain celibate. And through his dictatorship, his abuse, and taking teenagers as wives, the line was drawn in the sand, and those who were against him fled, such as a group of Australian defectors who went to Australian authorities after returning to their native country. And soon after, an Australian news reporter arrived in Waco to question its members.
Well, a lot of very serious allegations have been made against him and this place. Have you heard those?
Aussie Man Reviews started in the 90s.
Isn't it? Yeah.
live on set.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Allegations?
No, not that I could.
Allegations that people here are frightened of him, of his behaviour.
Oh no, I'm not frightened of him.
Yeah?
Nuh-uh.
What about the girl next to you? What do you think of David?
I think he's great.
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 16.
16?
Go on, Dave.
It's just the fact that he's just preaching and he's God, and then whips out his electric guitar in front of all the women and starts playing like a proper rock
He
ballad.
just wants a load of women and play guitar, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Playing a band.
I'm seeing a lot of similarities here. You, David, rock band, guns.
I don't have guns at the moment.
Oh no, cult. Sorry, he's probably different.
Yeah, chump.
The master manipulator prepared his followers for the so-called great battle between the faithful and the beasts of Babylon. David Koresh prepped food, taught survivalism, and prepared his followers for war. And as the sheriffs were notified,
Not exactly
by
Ring the
UPS
Roses, is
reports, a package containing grenades.
It's probably even worse though.
Yeah, Ring Around the Roses is about the Black
plague.
Death, though, isn't it?
Is it? I
Yeah,
have no
so like
idea. Was it?
most of them are rooted in proper tragedy.
big dark.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's quite light compared to that, I suppose, isn't
Just
it?
wait till you find out what Three Blind Mice was really all about.
And explosive powders. The Great War was coming, as the ATF were notified and giving Koresh his violent history, information pertaining to reports of automatic gunfire coming from the Mount Carmel Center. The ATF locked in on David and began snooping around for any and all taxable weapons, even sending in undercover Special Agent Robert Rodriguez, who reported that David Koresh was using drop-in Sears to convert semi-automatic rifles to full auto, according to the affidavit. The arrest warrant on David Koresh and the search warrant on the Mount Carmel Center was signed by a judge on February 25th, and the ATF planned a raid that would go down in infamy. And on February 28th, the day of the raid, a tipped-off news reporter on his way to cover the inbound ATF raid stopped and asked a stranger for directions to the Mount Carmel Center, mentioning the ATF spectacle that was soon to be taking place. The stranger whom he stopped was David Koresh's brother-in-law, a Branch Davidian, who fled back to the compound to warn the others of the incoming raid.
Wow.
Why are news reporters being told in the first place that there's going to be a raid?
It happens all the time.
I suppose it's all, yeah, they
Who
want there to film it,
Whoever
don't
you
they?
pay.
Yeah.
As soon as you start handing over the cheddar, people start talking.
Yeah, I've got an exclusive for you. There you go, a few quid. This is where it's going to
this
be.
heavily armed cult of weapons dealers are now tipped off that the ATF are coming to check out their firearms to see if they're fully autoed or not. Come on.
It's bad, that, isn't it?
You just walk into a disaster straight away.
Yeah.
The Davidians armed themselves and took defensive positions against what they interpreted as the beasts of Babylon. The agents arrived, hidden within the back of cattle trucks, and began their offensive positions against what they interpreted as the religious group with illegal guns and a history of gun violence. And regardless of the psychologies or theologies of either side, both sides put their quarter in the jukebox. The ATF agents hit the ground running, effecting a dynamic entry to capture David Koresh and execute the search warrant. But instead of hitting the Davidians with the element of surprise, gunfire erupted, and whether or not it was the ATF or the Branch Davidians who shot first, all hell broke loose. The Branch Davidians were firing from over 40 different shooting positions. Agents on the ground became pinned down by a barrage of automatic gunfire. A diversion of helicopters arrived, attempting to fly low over the complex as a distraction, but the Branch Davidians shot at the helicopters, and the helicopters were forced to land. Running ladders on the east side of the building, the ATF forced themselves upon the compound, making entry into the building from the roof, walking straight in to a close-quarter battle. The realization sank in that the agents were failing. Half of the team were attempting to enter the compound, business as usual, sticking to the plan. As for the other half, they were pinned down, contagiously shooting at the building with no direction or purpose, recklessly endangering the women and children. A Branch Davidian by the name of Wayne Martin dialed 911.
Yeah, this is Lieutenant Lynch. May I help you? Yeah, there's 75 men around our building and they're shooting at us in Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel? Yeah, tell them there are children and women in here and to call it off.
Lieutenant Larry Lynch of the McLennan County Sheriff's Office jumped on the line and hailed ATF agents via radio.
I'm talking with Wayne now. He's inside. They're wanting everybody to back off and talk. I'm trying to get what radio frequency. They told me the radio van. We're not getting a response.
During this time, Deputy Director of the ATF Dan Hartnett contacted Washington, D.C., requesting the assistance of FBI negotiators on the scene in Waco. FBI special agents from a nearby field office responded to the scene. And after nearly 2 hours of shooting, and around the same time ATF agents began to run low on ammo, negotiators secured a ceasefire. A wounded David Koresh, shot in the wrist and stomach, ordered the Branch Davidians to hold their fire. The ATF extracted 18 of their own who were severely wounded, 4 of which were killed in action. The Branch Davidians recovered 5 of their dead, and it's reported up to 20 Branch Davidians were wounded as a result of the shootout. And the Davidians began to bunker down and barricade inside the compound, believing full well that these were the end times that their leader David Koresh had prophesized. And the ATF, knowing full well that they royally fucked up, handed over the crisis to the FBI.
Just a bit. The fact there was women and children in the first place, they must have known that.
Of course they must.
You know, they must have thought.
But then if you're getting fire from windows and stuff like that, they're going to fire back, aren't they?
Yeah, you don't know.
Oh yeah, of course.
The women and children might have been firing. They might have been using the weaponry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
18 wounded, so it was no joke. It wasn't like a couple of bullets were firing at them. That was like a full-blown battle for 2 hours.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
9 people dead, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, at least by the sound of it, yeah. Some of them were pretty seriously injured, weren't they? So, yeah, pretty bad.
I suppose your conscience would want you to think that the people inside have got the women and children away from the windows and like the combatants are the ones that are at the windows shooting.
No,
and maybe
they're all fruitcakes, aren't they?
I know, but I'm not sure.
So who knows?
They may not have known to what extent.
If ever was a case for sort of like a special forces type of raid,
it would have been
this
there.
is it. I think.
But I don't think
get some intel first, find out where he is, and try and get him in.
Like you just said, though, I don't think they expected what they were dealing with.
They knew the quantity of firearms, at least, because if they're licensed weapons dealers, they'd know that the place is an absolute...
It's like an armory, isn't it?
It's an armory. It literally is an armory.
Yeah.
That's probably why they went with the element of surprise, but then that knobhead reporter tipped someone off by mistake.
Yeah.
If that hadn't happened, then maybe they would have just raided all the windows and doors and just
maybe
got
they
in.
could have got in there before anything else happened. Yeah, maybe.
I wonder what's the consequences of the report. I mean, we might find out in the rest of the film. But what happens to that reporter, and and who told him in the first place, who leaked the information?
Well, that's why you probably won't find out, because maybe it came from a high in the first place. That they wanted it reported.
You'd like to think there'd be proper investigations done after, because you need a real post-mortem of this, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow,
you can't just go, oh shit, that went wrong, and then everyone walk away.
Right, what's happened here?
Yeah. Wow. I love how this guy makes videos as well.
Great,
the music choices, really the editing.
Yeah.
Jamar, I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI in the San Antonio division, and I'm the special agent in charge of FBI operations here in Waco.
Can you tell us, in talking with Koresh, have you any indication how many people in the compound are dead, how many are wounded, what their condition is?
The people we're talking to say 3 people wounded, to include Koresh. The extent of wounds, we don't know. The extent of his wounds, we don't know.
Channel 13, Eyewitness News, tonight.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. A fanatical, scripture-quoting religious leader,
actually called, known as the Branch Davidians, is an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They broke off from the church and moved out here from Los Angeles back in 1935. But despite the longevity of the cult in and around the Waco area, very few Waco residents that we spoke with had ever even heard of this cult before today.
All across America, all eyes were on Waco.
I think it's across the world.
And not even 5 hours after the ceasefire, another Branch Davidian was killed. A man by the name of Michael Schroeder, who had been working during the raid and tried sneaking past ATF agents to return to his people. When he was spotted by ATF snipers and confronted on the ground, agents report that Schroeder was armed with a Glock 19 and opened fire. He was shot 7 times, and his body was left where it fell for 5 days.
How many gunshots did you hear?
It was quite a few, I couldn't really say how many it was, but he knew it was something that wasn't normal.
But the FBI was certain nobody else needed to be harmed, and the negotiations with David Koresh began.
How could we save these children and women and...
Give me the coverage.
Okay, I'm going to get your scripture message to the radio station right away.
David refused to surrender, but bargained with negotiators to release 2 children every time they air his message of how God gave him the ability to unlock the 7 seals of Revelation and start the apocalypse via Dallas radio news station KRLD.
Let's say it's like a 2-3 minute message. You just put it on repeat for the next 2 hours and just tell everyone to switch the radios off. And then, right, get all the kids out. We've played it 50 times. Or whatever it is.
I don't know.
Problem is when you publish something like this, all the other weirdos around the area congregate and.
That's probably what he's hoping
it's
for.
It's like a magnet to sort of like go there and see what's going on. I remember when Strangeways, the rooftop
on the roof,
remember the rooftop protest?
Yeah.
All the ex-cons and wannabe cons all congregated around there cheering them all on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was news.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it can get like. And the problem is, it's a bit like giving in to terrorists, isn't it? In this country, say never give in to terrorists because. Giving to all, people like kidnappers and stuff because you set a precedent and it just happens even more, then doesn't it? You fuel the fire to a certain extent, don't you? But in this case, maybe their hands were tied and they thought lesser of 2 evils to at least get the kids out.
I think the women are adults and they have a say in whether or not they're in the cult. Whether people say they do or don't,
some of them are not adults. Some of them are like 16.
No, but what I'm saying is the kids are a different story. Get the kids out; they're completely innocent.
Yeah, but he's fucking the kids.
Is he?
Yeah, didn't he have a relationship with someone who was 16? They said. I know they said the 60-year-old mum, but didn't he say someone 16 as well?
I missed that bit.
There was a girl who was in the car. She said she was 16.
Yeah, she said she was 16, but I don't think they ever said who she was or his relationship to her or anything like that. But yeah, get the kids out. But what I'm saying is, like, the women are grown women, adults, just like everyone else.
That's their choice,
they're
isn't
part
it?
of it as well.
Yeah. If you're an adult, it's your choice, isn't it? Whether you're man or a woman.
Yeah, but sometimes you're captured there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
The problem is with these cults as well, you know, clearly there tends to be like a bit of brainwashing going on.
Big time.
You know, I'm not saying every single cult, but, you know,
there is.
there probably is, yeah.
Yeah, get the kids out of there. Unbrainwash them.
Do a lot of the adults want to be there, even a lot of the adult blokes, do they really want to be there?
Yeah,
or is it a lot of it just
it's hard to escape.
I've seen loads of I mean, it's not just people making it up either. I think it's, like you're going to say, really difficult to escape these places, isn't it? A lot of people say, you know, it's virtually impossible to just
but
free yourself
they've
from
established that these people are able to drive into town.
Yeah.
Those kids were stopped, or the girls were stopped driving in. The brother-in-law was the one who spoke to the reporter.
Yeah.
That other guy that's just been killed was trying to sneak back into the compound. So they're not there under lock and key.
But don't forget, a lot of these people have families as well, though. This guy, bet your bottom dollar he'll know their families as well.
Or the families are there.
Like
yeah.
Exactly. There'll be ties somewhere that makes
he's an in-law
that makes them come back.
So he's obviously, you know, they're probably all in-laws.
Well, I was going to say, there's probably a lot of
the sister's the brother, the mother's the son.
Most of them are probably related now, aren't they?
Exactly.
I would think so.
It's such a crazy story, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely mad.
Steve Koresh. I'm speaking to you from Mount Carmel Center. First thing that I would like to introduce in our subject is the reasons for the revelation of Jesus Christ.
Over the next 10 days, David consistently released an inconsistent number of both women and children after each broadcast of his sermon.
It's nothing other than I need to see the revelation of Jesus Christ.
21 children have been released since the standoff began February 28th. Most came out with messages from their parents listing relatives that might take them.
And basking in the glory of the third act of his self-proclaimed prophecy, David refused to surrender, believing wholeheartedly that these were the end times.
He gave us his word that
what I want to know now, and people in the comments will let us know on this, or I could Google it. Right?
We want a conversation though, don't we?
I know. Is them kids that have been released from a cult, right?
Yeah.
When they were young. So this was 93, right?
Yeah.
So how many years ago was that? 30 years
19.
ago, right?
Yeah,
29.
30 years ago.
30 years ago.
Sorry.
I'd say 29
Yeah.
years. I'd say 30 years ago. So these kids now are going to be like 35 to 45 sort of age group sort of thing. I wonder if they're in a cult now.
Probably not.
Or are they infamous for being a cult member? Or are they, you know, sort of like similar sort of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean, yeah.
There are precedents in sort of documentary making, because Louis Theroux's done, what's the most hated family in America that's a current...
The Bush family.
No, it's a present day cult, isn't it? The ones that pick
Kardashians.
No.
I'm trying. Fucking give me a...
You've got lots
give
of
me a clue.
This could be a long segment, this.
They picket soldiers' funerals and say that they deserve to die, and they do like homophobic signs, say everyone's going to burn in hell, and it's
I've not heard of them.
No, I have seen. I've seen it with.
I can't remember what they're called, but there's.
We'll have to do that then.
But there's
people
people.
react to that.
There's people that have defected as kids or young adults have defected, and then they're disowned by the family, and then like Louis Theroux will go and speak to them years later to see what their life's like.
But I'd like to know what about the kids that were in this, whether they're cult or in a cult.
Westboro Baptist Church.
Right.
Is that what it was?
That's what they're called. Yeah.
Memory.
Yeah.
after the message was yes, but what if there is a higher power than you and I that speaks to an individual? If there's a God in this universe, and there's the laws of man and there's the laws of God, and this God that has led him all his life says to him to wait, what do you do?
Crazy people always say the laws of man. You know, because it kind of implies that there's higher laws. You know, whenever I've heard someone say following the laws of man, I'm like, you're a lunatic.
Yeah. So it's above every law, every law or justice system in your country or anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
I can just imagine someone saying that in the pub where I go, and the abuse and grief they'd get.
It's the same.
Yeah, I can just imagine your conversation with him.
I've had people rant at me.
Not just me. I mean, I just sit and watch.
I've been ranted at, and someone's used the phrase "laws of the land" before as well, and I'm like, you're trying to make it sound bigger than it is, and more. You know, just say the law. It's the law.
Yeah.
Now not on normal courtyard.
I was just gonna say that would come into the equation somewhere.
Bombs.
Yeah.
The FBI grew impatient and began to implement aggressive tactics. beginning with a psyop to prevent the Branch Davidians from sleeping, to entice them to surrender.
So I heard the monkeys as well.
Yeah. I'd well sleep through that.
So would I.
It's like you've been.
I put white noise on every night, man. I'd be fast asleep.
It's like the jungle here.
Yeah.
Turn off the damn monkeys.
It.
And I don't know how true it is again, but allegedly the American troops used to play Metallica to prisoners of war in Iraq.
No, really?
You know, as like a form of you just hearing it all day, every day. It's
constantly.
like a psyop, I guess they're calling it.
Yeah, in Guantanamo, they played Snake Stomper.
That's why they all plead you guilty. Stop it!
I should be owed some royalties then.
Why do you think you got so many listens on your YouTube channel now?
Yeah, it's just Terry's.
David had a revelation, informing negotiators the end times were no longer coming, and that once he was done penning his manuscript, interpreting the 7 seals, he would come out and surrender with the rest of the children. However, officials reportedly grew concerned after having learned from Texas Rangers of abuse reported by the released children during a series of interviews. United States Attorney General Janet Reno and then President Bill Clinton agreed that getting the remaining children out of the Mount Carmel Center was the #1 priority, even if it meant another tactical resolution.
David, individuals inside the Branch Davidian compound. We are in the process of placing tear gas into the building. Exit the compound now. Submit to the proper authority, David.
Authorities used tanks to deploy the tear gas, at which point the Branch Davidians opened fire. Wiretaps revealed the Davidians were also pouring some type of fuel inside the compound. As different as they were, both sides had so much in common. Both sides endangering the children. Both sides shallow and clueless. Both sides playing God. And a simple lesson in history will teach you: you can't play God without creating hell.
What if we start over? Get a second chance.
76 Branch Davidians perished in the fire, 27 of which were children.
They cannot be proud about what they did on April the 19th.
The events at the Mount Carmel Center sparked both outrage, criminal prosecutions, and civil litigations. Congress held extensive hearings into charges that federal law enforcement officials made serious mistakes.
Earlier in an opening I gave this morning with regard to the Posse Comitatus Act, just to refresh my colleagues' memories, the Posse Comitatus statute is a criminal statute that states that it's a crime to use any part of the Army or Air Force to enforce the laws of the land unless authorized by Congress or the Constitution.
Including the affidavit, which failed to establish probable cause, and the use of pyrotechnic tear gas, which under the right conditions can become extremely flammable. Attorney General Reno defended her actions before the FBI's assault on the cult's compound. Reno was adamant that she alone had made the decision to force the cult leader David Koresh and his followers out of their compound with CS tear gas, and later denied all allegations of the use of pyrotechnics.
I am very, very troubled by the information I received this week suggesting that pyrotechnic devices may have been used in the early morning hours on April the 19th, 1993 at Waco.
However, several munitions of pyrotechnics were recovered from the rubble. Several experts who testified at the hearings stated that the fire was a premeditated decision by the Davidians to burn down the compound and themselves, likely at the orders of David Koresh. And the public demanded answers.
Nobody wants to admit that their government could possibly be guilty of such a thing. But based on what I found out here over the past 5 months, I have no choice but to say that they were.
And the tragedy of Waco echoed into the streets of Oklahoma City.
Somebody told me a lot of people are scared to put something on.
What?
There you go. All the nutters congregate.
It's exactly what you said, isn't
Yeah.
it? Anyone that's slightly anti-government and they're seeing what's happening on the public stage. I'm thinking that because I could have sworn I saw footage years ago of like a tank that looked like it had a flamethrower or something. I'm starting to think that would have been in this if it would have been legit. So maybe that was faked footage or conspiracy theory.
Right,
but it's just crazy, isn't it?
When did he bomb Oklahoma City? Was it 9? That was 93.
Not sure.
Was it 98?
Not sure.
I'm not sure. No, I don't know either.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I mean, the huge tragedy here is the kids, isn't it? 27
It's
kids.
absolutely unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, if the guy wants to, see himself off and some of his followers, I mean, look at the kids go, geez, I mean, they haven't got a choice.
Weird, aren't they? Proper weird and freaky.
Well, maybe the kids aren't being killed; they're transcending.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean. Fucking lunatics like this thing.
Exactly.
And whether or not the fire was caused by the authorities or the Davidians, the real question is, was it worth it? Was it worth showing off to prove a point? The ATF could have simply grabbed David Koresh somewhere in town, but elected to raid, creating a crisis within a crisis. And nothing in life is worth risking the life of a child. And if there's one thing that those in charge can remember and learn from Waco, it's to ask themselves before acting, is the juice worth the squeeze? Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, it's good that.
That was
It's really
very
good video,
informative.
well put together.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's just it's a heavy one, that, isn't it?
Very much so. It's a long.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a lot. Same here. Yeah, it's a long time since I've heard anything about the Waco as well. So it just brings it all back to you now, doesn't it?
Yeah, but if anyone mentions Waco, Texas to you, the first thing that springs to mind is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Of course
it's wrong that things like that should be,
something like that puts a place on the map.
Yeah.
It's that in itself, it's pretty tragic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. I mean, imagine your town being known for that, and how many towns there actually are that when someone says the name of it, we can think of a tragedy.
well, you remember
that happened.
Hungerford, don't you? And everyone knows about that,
Yeah.
don't you? That tragedy there.
Well, you hear places like Sandy Hook and stuff like that, and what do you think?
Yeah.
of? You think of like tragedy
Absolutely,
and horrible stuff happening.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's
But,
just fucking
it's just
cults.
absolutely unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really,
Screwballs.
really is.
I don't know. Is it a thing now? I mean, I know there's still cults and stuff like that, but I mean, we've not experienced anything like on a scale outside of like terrorism, like you get like with with some of the Middle East terrorists or like organisations you get.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about in the USA, or I mean, I've not heard anything in the UK of like cults causing
I think
mayhem.
probably because of the terrorist alerts and everything. I think the intel these days is so much better than it was like 20, 30 years ago. I think they're really stepping on things a lot quicker these days.
Yeah.
With online presence,
Social media as well. Yeah.
Social media, and I think they're sort of like they're pretty good at sort of like getting to grips with these things. probably better than they used to be.
I know they've made it a lot harder to get your firearms license in this country, and the searches they do and the sort of interrogation is a lot more thorough.
Yeah, but what you find, Dave, it's not the people who own the guns that are causing the trouble.
No, it's not.
It's the dickheads. I mean, we've experienced it recently in Liverpool. With the 32 people have been arrested in the last 2 days for firearm offences.
Yeah,
and none of them are legally owned.
No, of course not.
Legally own a gun.
But in this context and the cults and stuff like that, it seems to be legally done. And I'm saying, like, I think we've probably got plenty of cults in this country.
Oh yeah,
but they're not armed.
Right.
That's it. It's not so much the cult. It's the thing that he was spouting about, being armed, wasn't it? He turned it into like an armed militia, more or less, isn't
like they're probably more a danger to themselves in this country, where they're all just going to do some suicide pact, and you're going to, there goes 50 of them or whatever, and you're like,
you just don't hear about it as much as you used to.
Not really.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's always going to happen. You're always going to have some nutballs, aren't you, that create these institutions, but
they mostly knock on your door wearing a suit, don't they?
Don't know what you mean.
They're handing out pamphlets
in Altrincham.
But that was
but it was informative.
Heavy.
Yeah,
it was.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Hit the bell, please, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.